All right. We'd like to call the meeting for June 26th Select Board to order. And Bill, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we need to approve the minutes. Select Board work session for June 12th, 2017.
I make a motion that we accept the minutes of June 12th.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. The Select Board non-public work session for June 12th, 2017. Any discussion, any changes?
Make
Do
a
I have
motion, motion to accept the minutes of June 12th, non-public.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Board of Select meeting for June 12th, 2017.
Make a motion to accept it as written.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Select Board site visit, June 15th, 2017.
Make a motion to accept those as written.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain, I was not there.
I abstain.
The Board of Select special non-public session for June 15th, 2017. Do I have a motion? Any discussion?
I move that we accept those as written.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I abstain.
Select Board will meet on the following dates. Regular meeting 6 p.m. Monday, July 10th and July 24th, 2017. Work review sessions prior to the regular meeting will start at 5 p.m. Tentative work session, if needed, 5 p.m. Monday, July 31st, 2017. All of the above meetings will be held in the Town Hall unless otherwise posted. Citizens wishing to be listed on the Select Board's agenda should notify the Town Hall before 12 p.m. the Friday before the scheduled meeting. Town offices will be closed on Tuesday, July the 4th, 2017, in observance of Independence Day. New members are needed for Planning Board, Zoning Board positions. If interested, please submit a letter of intent to the Plymouth Select Board's office, 6 Post Office Square, Plymouth, New Hampshire, 03264. All right, we're running a little early here. Do we want to go ahead and start the public hearing, Paul?
I think we got
Oh, we have to wait.
You have to wait.
We have to wait. Let's see, can we go ahead and do the purchase order?
Yes.
Is someone going to,
You want a motion? For the treasurer from the state of New Hampshire, town share of Forster Street. A 7-year effort, we were finally able to secure a grant to realign Forster Street. When you come off of exit 26, it will be moved to realign itself with Forster Street and the Common Man. Right now, they're not aligned, and when trucks are coming from south to north, they can't turn. And they used to be able to go up to where McDonald's was and turn around in there and then come back the other way. And we've been trying to get that grant for 7 years now, because we felt part of the problem should have been the state when they aligned it to begin with. And we were able to succeed at doing that this year. And the grant is $406,932. And we have to do the 10% match. So that's what the $40,000 is. And we might be able to do some of that in kind services with our highway department. but on paper, we have to put down the $40,000. And that $40,000, by the way, will be coming out of the $2 million bond. That was part of the plan.
Any other questions? Discussion?
I think it's about time.
I think it's a very important intersection, especially for safety concerns. The traffic load is very high, and it's extremely difficult for trucks to get in and out. Practically everybody has to guess what the person on the other side of the road is going to do.
Do we have a motion?
I move that we expend $40,693.22 for the town portion of the project cost.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Still got time to kill.
Yeah. 7 more minutes.
You can do committee reports, John.
Yeah. Mike, do you have any committee reports?
I do. There was one item that I missed, that I didn't get a chance to mention. On May 26, Governor Sununu came to Plymouth and met with some business owners. There was a lot of talk about jobs and the lack of applicants when jobs are posted. There was some talk about Northern Pass and the opposition to it, and why we were opposed to it. There were, the governor talked about some stories about visiting businesses that are outside of the state that he's heard through the grapevine that are thinking of moving, and he went personally to speak to them to see whether they would be willing to come into New Hampshire. He also talked about going into Canada and enticing businesses there to come to New Hampshire as well. There was, he mentioned a lot of the reasons why it's hard for businesses to think about New Hampshire is the cost of electricity and the lack of electricity, in his words. And then the talk went to Northern Pass. There was a, let's see, I went to a June 20th meeting hosted by the Chamber where an alternative transmission line from Canada to Massachusetts spoke. It was extremely interesting, and due to that meeting, Sean Downey is here today, who will be giving a presentation later on at the meeting. That's all I have.
Bill?
I missed a Plymouth Energy Commission meeting the other day, and I did go to the planning board meeting, and in fact, I was just frankly drawing some notes, but there were several applicants that showed up to, well, there's a change of use of the last chair to modify their storage units to accommodate their brewery operation, which we approved. And also, there was a subdivision application that had been going on for a couple months, and the parties were not able to reach an agreement as far as how best to situate the pins on the lot line to diminish or lessen the impact to wetlands. So we didn't approve it. And that was pretty much it, I believe.
Neil?
Last Tuesday, the Conservation Commission voted to approve the plan by Harbor Homes for Veterans Housing Project at Boulder Point, which will be considered by the planning board. It involves a 30-unit building. And I also attended a soil morphology workshop at Concord, sponsored by the New Hampshire DES. And On Wednesday, the North Country Council Board of Directors had a meeting, and I learned that the Economic Development Center in Plymouth will be getting another employee to work with community development. And also, the Department of Resources and Economic Development is being reorganized. And there may be some more grant money available.
Brian?
I have none of this.
And I have none. And we have 3 minutes.
It's 2 minutes, John. I'll go correct the clock.
All right. Does anyone have any comments of a general nature?
We have a Pemmons-Wasset River Local Advisory Committee meeting tomorrow night.
Okay.
And actually, we have an application that, and generally, the committee looks at applications for projects along the river. Uh-oh, the clock has been changed too. And we have a meeting tomorrow
You ran
night.
out of time.
Nobody gets to sing or dance? All right. I think we're there. It's 6:15. We'll call to public hearing to discuss the proposed placement of solar array on town-owned land adjacent to the Plymouth Recycling Center. Presentation will be given by the Plymouth Energy Commission with public input and questions following. You'd announce your name and
I will. I'm Grace Garvey. I'm one of the PEC members, or the Plymouth Energy Commission members. We also have a couple of other members with us tonight. Peter Martin here in the blue shirt. Next to him is Katie Bush and Lad Rain. If anyone else was able to join us tonight. So there are some pamphlets at the back of the room in case you didn't see these, so grab one of those so you can follow along. There's also some slides, a page, 2-page, one side of each, of slides so you can follow along as well. But we do definitely want to give you an opportunity to ask questions and give us an opportunity to answer questions at the end. So I'll go through this and then we'll have some question and answer period. And can everybody hear me okay? Great. So for about 2 years now, the Plymouth Energy Commission has been researching the feasibility of installing a solar array here in the town. And we're really excited to present that proposal tonight to you. Through our research, the PEC believes that the proposal will serve to generate a renewable energy source at a local level, which we believe is a really positive thing. And it will also give us, the town, the ability to save some money on their power bills. It'll also support the recent resolution that the town adopted to recognize Plymouth as an eco-friendly destination. It'll also give us an opportunity, the town, an opportunity, as we'll describe in a minute, to lock in at a rate for the next 20 to 25 years. That's a known entity, a known electrical rate. So basically, the proposal is to work with IGS Solar. IGS Solar will be responsible for financing, constructing, owning, insuring, and maintaining the PV array. And they'll also decommission it at the end of its life. And what they will do in turn is to sell the energy generated by the array to the town through a power purchase agreement, or a PPA. And from here on, I'm probably just going to be referring to that power purchase agreement as PPA. So by using the PPA model, there would be no upfront cost to the town. The only cost to the town will be to purchase the energy from IGS Solar that is generated each month, similar to a regular utility bill. IGS Solar is actually an Ohio-based company, but they are working with 2 New Hampshire firms, New England Commercial Solar Services, and Ted Van Zandt is here today on behalf of that particular entity. And they'll also be working with KW Management, and those two entities will design and construct the actual array. We, as the members of PEC, have actually been working with IGS Solar, with KW Management, and with TED through New England Commercial Solar Services to come up with this proposal, and really the one that will best suit the town. So let's talk a little bit about what's being proposed. So what's currently being proposed is, if you look at that first page, there's a chart that outlines 4 different examples of terms and rates and buyout periods and escalators for basically different scenarios that the town can engage in a contract, a PPA contract for. Your document that you have in your hand talks about an assumed escalator of about 3.5% for energy, but we have had a conversation today that really IGS Solar has narrowed down some details on that percentage, and really it's about 1.6 over the last 15 years. One of our biggest focuses for this array, though, is the fact that we can't really protect the future rates of energy. So locking in at a 20 to 25-year rate, in our opinion, is an incredibly beneficial aspect of this PPA proposal. We actually think the 20-year at 2% escalator would probably be about the best option for the town, with a buyout of 7 years. So basically the town would buy the array in 7 years for about $156,500. And these numbers, we think they're pretty firm, but we have to nail them down a little bit with IGS Solar, and also we have to figure out what the PUC's rebates will be, which is a little bit uncertain at this moment, but should be able to nail those down in July. I'm going over to this graph here. I believe that's on your second page. I had to print mine a little bigger because I don't see as well as I used to. That is a hypothetical example using the current Constellation rates compared to that 20-year 2% escalator rate that was described on the first chart. That basically, it attempts to hypothetically show you some of the savings that the town will enjoy. We actually at the PEC would like to get that a little more boiled down, so we would like to have you consider that as a draft graph, because there are some cost savings that are actually not reflected in that graph. Is that okay? And we're going to send around later a sign-up sheet so you can sign up to get the final of this proposal, so that those numbers will be a little bit more nailed down, so to speak. So Katie will pass it around in a little while, the sign-up sheet. So the best place for the array that the PEC has vetted is actually at land that the town owns right adjacent to the recycling center. And if you don't know where that land is, if you're standing with your back to the recycling bins, it's basically what you're looking at. There's kind of a slope treed area. I believe it's 44 acres. I don't remember how many acres
25.
In total. How many?
25.
25?
I bought it. Yes.
Got it, 25. I don't know where I came up with 40.
The whole recycling center in the,
Oh, together. Okay, maybe that's what I did, excuse me. But really, we'd only be using about 3 acres of that particular site. I've been up to the site quite a bit. Actually, Neil MacGyver was kind enough to take a walk up there with me and some other folks, and we've been up over the course of time with other select board members and identified a space that's fairly flat and somewhat south-facing. It's not the creme de la creme of solar sites, but with some work, we think it's going to be the perfect site. The estimates that IGS Solar came up with for annual production at that site is 177,000 kilowatts per year. And I'm actually on, if you want to follow along, I'm at the section that talks about array details on that proposal handout. Basically, what would happen is that the energy created by the array will be directly used when the transfer station is open, assuming the sun's out when the transfer station's open. So it'll be used for things like the compactor and the lights and et cetera, et cetera. This particular proposal will generate much more than the actual transfer station uses in a year. There have been some estimates that the transfer station uses about 26,000 kilowatt hours. The array at 177,000 would give you a bonus of 151,000 kilowatt hours. So this proposal is set up to be a group net metering proposal, so that basically it'll be grid tied. What's generated when the transfer station is open will be used immediately. What is not used will get fed to the grid. We'll get credits through the co-op. And then if you look at the town energy needs section, those credits will be used by a couple of the other town buildings yet to be identified. If you look at that town energy needs section, I believe that's on page 3. And again, I have one that's printed a little higher resolution. The Pease Library uses about 109,000, and the police department uses 72,000. And if you do your math, you could probably put maybe the fire department and the Pease Library and the transfer station in that group, if that makes sense. And I know that committee members are going to jump up if I say anything that's confusing or, okay. There is a diagram here that sort of outlines how the net metered solar generation process works. Again, it's what you use when you're open is a big bonus. What you don't use is credited and used by, in this case, other buildings on the group net metering proposal. And those buildings will be identified ahead of time. The co-op rate that the town would receive from the excess that's fed beyond the meter at the transfer station is also something that's yet to be determined. But they do post their rates for net metering on their website. Do they change regularly every day, or does anybody know how often? Every 6 months. Okay. Just trying to decide if I've missed anything until we go over to, no, I think we're good. Ted, anything you want to add at this point? No? Okay. So I went over some of the project benefits that the PEC sees as part of this proposal. Those are outlined on page 4. It gives us the opportunity to lock in at a known utility rate, as I said, for 20 to 25 years, depending on which contract we chose or the town chose. So we actually, the town would avoid unknown future costs. It would develop a more self-reliant energy source here in our own town. We've had a lot of success with the solar arrays that have been placed on different buildings in this town, like the library and the sewer and water building. So we can become more self-reliant, even more self-reliant, to add this particular project. We can purchase the array in as few as 7 years, so then we would be the owner, the maintainer, and we would decommission it.
And that's an option.
That is an option.
So if that's not desired or overwhelming, you want to stick with the 20 to 25-year PPA term, that's perfectly fine, but gives you the option to buy it out at 7 years.
And there is some data right now that these arrays, actually those are conservative life. cycles, that some of them last 30, 35 years, or, you know, if they're maintained well. So the next steps for this project is to get the town to say that they can commit to the project. We certainly would love to entertain that sooner than later, because we'd like to take advantage of PUC rebates once they are launched again in hopefully July. We would prepare plans for site work at the transfer station. I think I mentioned it would take about 3 acres for the array. 3 acres would be cleared, and half an acre would be cleared, stumped, and graded for the array section itself. And then over the course of years, you'd have to maintain that 3 acre area as well as the half an acre. So we would like to start preparing plans for that site work, and we're gonna try and do that amongst the PEC members, because we have a lot of knowledge about plans and planning and things like that. We need to work with a contractor to finalize cost. We actually received 2 cost estimates for the clearing, stumping, and grading portion, which is on the last page of your handout. It talks about side notes. One quote we got from Don LaTulip, who's a known excavator. He actually didn't do the logging portion, but to excavate the half an acre and to stump and, to stump and grade it and prep it, it would be about $10,800. As I mentioned, Neil MacGyver was kind enough to meet us up at the facility, and he managed to get in touch with Mr. Morrison, Randy Morrison, who is a logger in town. He's done a lot of work for the town. His quote actually is attached as the last page of that handout. The PEC members are suggesting that we entertain that quote. The quote is for clearing, stumping, and grading at a cost of $7,850. But he goes on to say in his quote that he could do a selective cut of that remaining acreage and generate income for the town, which would offset the cost of any kind of site work for this project, which we thought was a great idea. As I mentioned, we managed not to meet the deadline for the PUC rebate for this year, but we feel like we should continue on with the timeline and the suggested next tasks to get in the queue for the PUC rebates when they are launched this year. And I think that's all I have. And I'm looking at my wonderful members to see if I've forgotten anything or misdescribed anything. The handout with the slides, there is a cost-saving slide. It's on the page 2. It's the slide to the right. I don't know if, Ted, you want to take a stab at talking about that, or? It's on page 2 of the slides. It's on the right-hand side.
Sure. I have a bigger version here, I think.
Okay. You want to borrow my glasses?
No, I use my arm extender. The easiest way to look at this is that the energy produced by the solar array is 177,000 kilowatt hours approximately, and the value of that energy will be credited to various town bills through group net metering at a rate of 10 cents a kilowatt hour. And to be able to get that benefit, the town will have to buy 177,000 kilowatt hours at a rate of 7.9 cents a kilowatt hour. You're getting a 10-cent benefit at a cost of 7.9 cents. And these are not exact numbers, but they're pretty close and they're approximate. So your your savings is 2 cents a kilowatt hour for those 177,000 kilowatt hours generated. So roughly $3,700 a year is what this would be saving the town to move forward with it.
So I think at this point, we want to open it up to question and answers, if there are any. And comments.
What I would like to
Yes.
do is, when we have the question and answers, it's one person talking at a time, and you can direct it, if you'll stay up there, or a member of your committee.
We do need a name. We need your name for the record.
Sure. Ted Van Sant.
Yes, and state your name and the town you live in.
So I'm recognizing Sandra Jones from Paray.
Sandra Jones, as Grace said. I just wanted to follow up on what Ted said about savings. What's not listed on here is CO2 emission savings. So when you're looking at kilowatt hours, in general, you're thinking 1.5 pounds of CO2 emissions are saved when you're generating solar energy in comparison to fossil fuel-based energy. So 1.5 pounds per 1 kilowatt hour. So most homes use between 500 and 800 kilowatt hours a month. So every kilowatt hour produced by solar saves 1.5 pounds of CO2 emissions. And I know that's an important issue for a number of people in Plymouth. I'm happy to speak to one other thing if I dare. The Plymouth Renewable Energy Initiative is overseeing many projects, big and small, mostly small for residents of Plymouth. I would urge the town to get all their ducks in a row as early as possible. So when we do a project, we've found getting your permits in place, your commercial incentive submitted, and that can be done even though there's no funding for the commercial incentive right now. It will be renewed hopefully this summer. They do have a waiting list, so you're best to just get it in the queue as soon as possible. And getting your interconnection form into the co-op so they can respond to what it's going to take to upgrade any transformer or anything like that. So I'd recommend that the town create a first phase, similar to what Grace was talking about, of the project and decide to move that forward and to lock in the PPA contract as well before you spend a significant amount of money. You might want to choose to spend a small amount of money to support that planning effort, but that's up to the town. But I've found getting all those ducks in a row is key before you sign on the dotted line and put any money towards the project, whether it be a contract or actual money.
Any other questions from anybody? Go ahead, Frank.
Frank Miller. I would like to recommend to go with the select cut proposition of allowing that individual to select cut the whole acreage, because that piece of property was originally purchased for a place to locate our highway department. But this would help get the project going with a source of income to do the project. And I think it'd be a great way to get the money to get actually moving forward on this project and keeping an eye on the future that we're looking to develop that piece of property for our highway department.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am?
Catherine Drexel, I live here in Plymouth. I'm just wondering, how does the co-op feel about this? I heard something about like when all these little things are happening, it doesn't fit in with like long-range planning for electric companies. I don't understand it. I'd love more information.
Good question. And so there has been some challenges with the co-ops with net metering projects. I don't know if I'm the best person to answer, but maybe Lad, you want to take a stab at that?
Right now, the town of Plymouth actually, so Lad Rain, Plymouth Commission. Right now, the town contracts with Constellation Energy to get its energy. We're not currently customers for New Hampshire Electric Co-op, so this actually increases New Hampshire Electric Co-op's customer base.
I would just add to that, that the electric co-op has bought into solar, and they were the first utility in the state to say, look, we're gonna do solar, you can do as much as you want, and here's the rules and regulations, it's all laid out perfectly clear. So they're fully supportive of solar, and the rules are cut and dry and clear, so makes it pretty easy.
Any other questions from the?
Yeah, Chris Woods, a couple of comments and a question. You all were doing your cost savings based on 10 cents a kilowatt hour, yet this PPC or PPA suggests these two other rates which are less than 10 cents. So
Can you talk about what you're looking at, Chris, for me?
on the slide,
Yep.
which Ted addressed, you're talking about a cost savings of the difference between 10 cents and then this purchase of energy at 7.79, and yet you have different numbers here on the table here on the first page of the outline, which is outlining this, 8.7 cents and 9.9 cents with the different PPA escalators.
Okay, yep, I know what you're saying. So, Ted, so what Ted was basing it on, I believe, was the 25-year PPA rate at 2% escalator?
The bottom one on that.
Bottom
page,
one.
7.9 cents.
Ah, okay.
That's
All
the
right,
PPA
okay, I
rate.
see, okay. Have you all done a cash flow analysis on I know it's kind of geeky, but have you done a cost comparison of the two options based on the 2% escalator and the higher rate upfront?
Did you, actually, I don't know. Did you do them on the?
So I mean, one might be.
Yeah, no, got it.
better than
No,
the
I
other.
think that's something that makes sense, because the town has the option of any one of those four rates they
Right.
can pick.
Yeah,
And
'cause you, I mean,
so,
you might get there might be a slightly better deal one way or the other, and really the details are, in the spreadsheet.
right.
I live in front of spreadsheets all the time, so.
My suggestion is that they're all gonna come out about the same, because the numbers behind them are, the IGS Solar needs to make a certain rate of return.
Right, so it
So
should be pretty
they back
close.
engineered this to say, you guys can pick whichever one you want, we make the same amount of money.
Mhm.
So that's, they give the option, because some people would rather have a lower upfront rate because it's more enticing, and other
Right.
people would rather have a fixed rate going forward. So
Right.
that's why,
Yeah, just one other general comment. If you are thinking about a selective cut on the entire land, I think this being town land, you have multiple objectives, multiple uses potentially of that property. I'd like to see potentially a timber management plan for, long-term, addressing multiple uses as opposed to just a single use here. Just looking at a larger picture, it just seems like that's a good decision-making tool.
Thanks for your comment, Chris.
Do we have any other questions from the group? Yes.
Christian Bisson, I live also in Plymouth. I noticed that your plan right now will generate about 47% of what the town is using. Is there any plan to extend that to a greater percentage maybe by increasing the array?
We did talk about a larger array.
The rebates are for.
Yeah, the rebates are for the smaller arrays, and so partly it was
it's a
based.
different location.
Yeah, right now there's a cap, the amount of kilowatt hours they allow you to have.
Is the cap from the state or the cap from the space?
The cap is the rebate
Yeah.
for the renewable energy, so it's not.
So if you went a little bit bigger, you wouldn't get any rebate, and then the economics wouldn't work
I
as
see.
well. So the most logical thing would be to do it at another location.
And then we produce
Then
the
get
same.
do the same similar size and the similar rebate.
And I think in the future, the Energy Commission is interested in exploring those options in the future.
That's one of the reasons.
Yeah.
Any more questions? Okay,
You
does,
have two letters that you have to read into the record, John.
okay. Okay, to the Select Board, the Town of Plymouth, we are writing in support of the solar array to be erected at the Plymouth Recycling Center. As members of the Conservation Committee, we feel it is essential that we invest in renewable energy in order to protect our Earth. As parents and grandparents, we believe that we are responsible to leave a cleaner and healthier environment for future generations. As Plymouth taxpayers, we welcome the opportunity for lower energy costs in the future. The recycling center appears to be a perfect location for a solar array, and we fully support the plan to go ahead. Sincerely, I'm sorry.
Oh, Gisela and Paul Estes.
Okay. Town of Plymouth Selectboard. Air Selectboard, thank you for allowing the townspeople to voice regarding proposed solar array at the Plymouth Recycling Center. Although I am unable to attend the evening's meeting, I want to voice my opinion in favor of installing a solar power array at the recycling center. I feel this would be a very positive step towards using alternative energy to power the town's facilities, reducing dependence on fossil fuel, and reducing a town expense. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Best regards, Barbara A. Spike. Yes.
Jennifer Highlands. I reside in Bridgewater, but I'm a Plymouth business owner. And I have a solar array at my house and also at my business, so I definitely believe in solar power and I've seen the benefits. I wanted to make one point and kind of a question. When we're talking about like a 20 to 25 year lifespan and then decommissioning, that would presumably be the solar components. Then there's the actual mounting array, the physical structure on which the panels are mounted. My arrays are both pretty small, so that portion, the structure to mount the panels on, was a fairly significant percentage of the total cost. It may be, I'm not sure how that boils down with a much larger array like this, but I guess my point would be that even if the panels start and certain other components start to wear out after a while, there would still be some infrastructure that the town, especially if the town still owned it at that point, would still be able to work off of, that would make it less expensive to continue using it. And perhaps Ted can speak to how significant that percentage is on a project this size.
How significant is the cost of the racking
The
that it sits on?
and the longevity.
10% of the cost, roughly 8 to 10%. But the longevity issue, it's a good question. The reason people use 20 or 25 years is because the panels are warranted for 25 years. Most people believe that an array like this can last 40 plus years. You may have to replace the inverters, which would be, in this case, handled by IGS Solar, because they are going to install and maintain the array. And so if you did buy the array, the idea would be to make it last as long as possible. So I would say much longer than 25 years. You should think more in terms of 35 to 40 years, that everything should last, including the panels. And if you did have to replace the panels, you could indeed use that existing racking infrastructure and just replace the panels and replace the inverters, and away you go for another 40 years. That's
Any other questions? Or does the board have any questions?
I have a couple of questions.
Okay, Mike.
So, Grace,
Sir?
there was only a half acre that needed to be clear cut off the property, or was it more than a half acre?
So a half acre clear, stumped and graded, additional 2.5 cleared.
So 3 acres cleared total?
Correct.
Clear cut? Would the town, is there any marketable lumber in that 3
Yes.
acres that the town would then get to resell?
Yes, we've actually, so Randy Morrison has walked the property. He walked it a couple years ago, apparently, or maybe, I don't know how many. And he finds that there is marketable timber in that 3 acres and also on the rest of the lot.
So he's proposing $7,500 roughly, I can't remember the number, that it would cost the town to have that cleared, stumped, and then we get to keep the lumber to then sell it? Or does he get to keep the lumber?
In that scenario, if we paid him $7,850, the town would keep the lumber.
Okay.
But we're proposing that,
Because I thought the additional lumber that we could look at on the rest of the property could then be used to offset the cost, you said.
Correct, but it could be also in that 3 acres if we engage in a contract with Mr. Morrison to selectively cut the rest of the lot.
So my question was the 3 acres. If he clear cuts 3
Yep.
acres, and there's going to be some marketable lumber on that.
Yep.
I'm not talking about the selective cutting after, outside of the 3 acres. Who gets to keep the marketable lumber in that 3 acres?
It could be sold by Mr. Morrison, whereby that monies could be given back to the town to offset the cost, or the town could keep it.
Excuse me, I think it's pretty clear if you read the contract, that's the last
Do
page.
you want me to give you a copy of
The town
that?
gets the value of the lumber regardless.
The town does.
That's what I read, number 5. says the town- The
Five
cost
is
to do the
the
work of
resale
1.4 is $7,800, and the town gets the value of all the timber credited as well.
And we did something similar with the airport a couple of years ago. Has it been that 2 years?
Yeah, we
So-
made, I think it was $76,000 in stumpage.
Okay, so a couple more questions. Did you look at the roof structure to put the array on versus having to clear cut some trees?
We did, it's too small for an array that would be of value. I think that was the biggest constraint. We also looked at the capped landfill, which is also too small, and there would be some shading because of the slope of that capped area. And then there were other sites that were looked at that didn't pan out to be viable, such as the airport.
So maybe it's going to be a similar size to what Interlakes did on their ball fields?
I don't know what they did. Anybody know?
Smaller.
Smaller than that? Because I know that
300 kW or something over there.
I went to a track meet there, and it was just a beautiful sight. And then to go back this spring for a track meet and to see it, it was an eyesore. I mean, every parent was talking about it. And it took a beautiful spot, very New England, very New Hampshire-ish, and filled it with brackets and metal. And so my next question would be, what do you have to do to maintain that 3-acre site? Is it going to have to be your group going to have to go out there with lawnmowers every week, or is it once a month, and the effect of lawnmowers being run, the loss of the trees, cleaning the air?
So the proposal, when I was out on the site with Randy, what he was proposing was to chip and broadcast the chips to keep the vegetation down initially. That's one option. But it does need to be maintained. So the half an acre site around the array itself might be better off having grass so you could mow it, and that would be up to the town to maintain. The rest of the 3 acres, the remaining 2.5 acres would have to be occasionally hand clipped to keep the saplings from growing and shading the array. And I hope that answers your question.
It does.
Okay.
What happens if electric rates drop significantly over the 20 years, 25 years, 30 years?
That's certainly a hedge. I mean, we're hedging that that's not going to happen. What typical energy escalation percentages across, nationally are around 1.6, but they can be up to 3.5% for an escalator. That's the average. They follow inflation, but sometimes more so, as we saw in 2003 and 4 with gas prices and things like that, heating oil. We're hedging that we'll be in front of the ball instead of behind the 8 ball.
Could there be a scenario where we might pay more?
Sure. I just don't think, none of us think that it's unlikely for 20 or 25 years of the warranted life of the panels that the rates aren't going to go up somewhat because of the natural inflation rate of all goods and services.
Because we have a speaker that's going to be talking about a transmission line coming from Canada to Massachusetts, which is dropped into our zone, which could have the effect of dropping rates more than what, as low as they are now. And we just don't have a crystal ball to know.
Ted, I kind of saw you maybe doing something. Did you have another comment about?
I just know, I can't cite the reference, but the co-op's electricity prices have gone up on average 1.5% to 2%. I don't know if that's from the beginning of when the co-op started, but, and then nationally it's closer to 3% to 4%. So that, to me, it seems unlikely that they would go down. And I'm curious as to whether the co-op would be buying the power you're discussing might be coming in. It's all about where the co-op buys their power. And the other thing is there's environmental benefits to this solar, no matter what the price is of electricity. And that's something that the Plymouth community cares about.
And I'm thinking for a number of reasons, it would be good to consider that the alternative, power project might go through, but we still have Northern Pass to deal with, and SEC may indeed, approve that project. And should that be the case, we're not looking at reduced rates for electricity. We're looking at a market value rate. So it's, I don't think an energy project will necessarily save us money, but, so, I think the option would be to, go with a solar, project and try to offset what a future energy project might deal with us. Anyway.
Neil?
I think you have to consider the fact that it's energy that we're producing in our town, and it's more reliable.
Any other questions or comment? Brian?
No, I don't.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for attending.
One thing I would like to ask, and being an accountant, have we got, we're looking at a 25-year life warranty and what have you. Have we looked at, cost of maintenance, startup, and, just say, this is what we have to do 1 through 15 and attach current costs, savings, and come up with the net figure that you're looking at?
The way this is proposed, it's proposed as a PPA, so we would have IGS Solar, in this case, would own it, carry the cost, finance it, with a possibility of the town buying it from them at a lump sum. So there wouldn't be cost from the town. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but.
Well.
So IGS has looked at those numbers.
Yeah, well, we're looking at maintaining the field, and, that would be town's expense and some of the different things. And we're looking at $78.50. We'll get money back on lumber and stuff like that. And I'm just wondering if there's any ballpark figures or, something, that, again, as it was brought up, that that would give us, to use the word return on investment. We're looking at spending this, and this, and environmentally, yes, you can't put a price on that, but just looking at it from a budget standpoint, what the town is looking at. And
I'm wondering whether, what percentage of an additional employee would it take to maintain that? Would it take, half of an employee throughout the year? That might be at, I'm not sure how much they'd have to get paid for the year, but would it cost us $15,000 a year to maintain it? Would it cost $5,000 a year to maintain it?
If we, okay.
I think Sandra might have
I just think we should round up some examples, because it's my understanding that you can seed the large arrays with such grass that the solar panels are a good 4 feet off the ground. The electrical part's probably another 5 feet off the ground. So you're talking mowing it
Couple
2 to 3
times a
times a
season.
year. So it's not a lot, and you can seed it with things that aren't gonna grow up, or they'll take over any possibility of sapling. So there's a lot of studies out there by the Department of Energy about what to plant underneath solar arrays. And you can also plant things that are beneficial plants to butterflies and insects, and so there's beneficial plantings you can do for the environment as well. So I wouldn't think it would be a big cost, but I think that that's a good question for the committee to answer.
Yeah, we can run that by
Towns.
some other towns.
Is there a cost that we know from like the water and sewer? That's like a parking lot, or where they put the water and sewer array? Is it on gravel, or it's like virtual? Probably no. No, he left, I guess.
It's
On
on
gravel.
gravel.
Yeah, okay.
gravel.
And the areas around it were seeded, so they always mowed that anyway.
All right.
But I don't think, I don't know, but it'd be a good question to ask.
It's our estimation that it would be fairly negligible to maintain it. It would be, and it would go under, I don't know who would maintain it. It might go under the maintenance, the recreational crew. I'm not really sure who the town hires to do.
The highway department has brush mowers that they use for mowing along roadsides. It would be adequate for that sort of work.
Ted, can you think of other maintenance if we're talking about, go ahead.
Go
Sorry.
ahead. Did you have another question?
Well, you were talking about maintenance costs, so I wanted to ask Ted if we haven't talked about a maintenance cost that you could think of. We talking about,
Really, the only I believe that IGS Solar, is my understanding, is responsible for the mowing in the array.
Okay.
They're responsible for the entire design, construction, mowing. The town pays zero for that. The only thing the town would be responsible for is that 2.5 acre area. When the saplings grow up, you need to go in there and cut them down, which is probably what, I don't know, there's other people that own land around here, what, every 4 years, something like that. So I don't think it's anywhere near an employee, half of an employee. It's more like a couple days of mowing and clearing.
Okay.
So we could try to get an estimate of that, but I'd say for the purposes of this, maybe it's $1,000 or $2,000 every few years.
Okay.
And we're talking about saving twice that per year
Well-
in energy costs.
Yeah, if we making comments, please be recognized.
yep, sorry. Yep.
Paul, did you have something you wanted to add to it? All right. Any more questions, comments? I will, all right.
I have my own solar array and I mow under it twice a year. That's it.
Okay.
Peter, can you just recognize yourself? Sorry.
Yeah, Peter Martin, I'm sorry.
All right.
Energy Commission.
Okay.
I only have to mow mine twice a year.
John,
Do you actually have to mow it twice a year? Or
I could mow it once a year if I did, but I
Just
do it
curious.
twice.
Okay, Mike?
is there any maintenance during the winter with snow load?
We just let the snow do its thing.
Okay.
That's what it's suggested.
No access, you don't have to keep
Nope.
access to it or anything like that?
Nope.
All right.
Just, I think part of the thing, that reason we're only clear cutting and prepping the half acre is that you keep it under 50,000 square feet of terrain, changing the terrain. Otherwise, if you get to clearing all of those stumps, you get into a site plan review for 100,000 square feet of modified terrain. You'd have to have a terrain permit, modified terrain permit. But the way they're planning this, you don't, because you're leaving the stumps in there, you don't impede the natural flow of the drainage of the land. That's why the numbers are there.
Okay. If there are no other questions or comments, I will close the hearing at 7:02 p.m. All right, moving ahead. All right, Sean is in the room. Would you like to come forward?
Do we want to discuss this further, or?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't know if we.
Just one moment, Sean. Yes, please.
No, just wondering
Does
if,
the board want to discuss it anymore?
well, I'm thinking it just to get a direction of, is it like a yay or nay to go forward with the, because I know the project itself, if it's kind of like on a rapid pathway, we could theoretically have it kind of complete by the end of the year. So, if that's the desire of the town and the board, I think should communicate that to, at least the vendor, so that we can start lining up the person doing the lumbering and
Calendar year or fiscal year?
calendar year.
Then the board has to decide whether they want to go to a full public meeting.
I thought we had this discussion, and we were going to,
You haven't voted publicly. You had a discussion, yes, in a work session.
to decide that we would do something similar to what we did with the excavator. As far as considering we're not really expending money, it was just get the town's desire of how to proceed.
I think it's very likely that the costs of excavation could be covered by the stumpage that we receive from Selective Cut.
Okay, any other?
One other question, the decommissioning cost, is that picked up by the, okay, so that would not be on the town at all in 25 years, whenever it is?
Unless the town purchased the array.
Any other?
I believe that this is a very important first step for the town. The Water and Sewer Department has had good luck with theirs.
But I think we need to have like a statement saying that, yes, we shall go forward with this, fill out the interconnection forms, let the co-op, know that we're going forward with a plan, and,
Well, I thought looking at this, that we were looking at possibly select board approval July 10th. Myself, I think it's good, but I would like to, myself, take a little closer look at it, and I hear this, and, again, if I'm voting and making a decision, I want to have opportunity to take a look at it, and this is the first time I've seen some of this, so. Mike?
Were there another solar array, and I'm vaguely remembering talking that there was another proposal?
there were two proposals, and the board actually, agreed with the Energy Commission to go forward with, the current proposal. So we've already kind of discussed that
And
and agreed to, at least partnering with the vendor.
and how
This
long
particular-
has this vendor been around? Do we know?
Decades.
Many decades. We're happy to get you their background bio.
I was just curious.
Large energy
It's a new
broker,
industry.
A national large energy broker that does billions of dollars of business.
Part of the beauty too is that they don't have investors, they have their own money, that they produce these projects, so, it's kind of done in-house.
Brian, do you have any comments or questions or thoughts? Your feelings?
I like the project. I just need to, I think, hear a little bit more about, maintaining and, what will go along with that. So I think that we should get a little bit more information.
So, Mike, your thoughts, your feelings?
I could be definitely convinced that this would be very good for the town. I would like to contact maybe another municipality that has it and get their feedback possibly. I'm not sure whether we have, if there has to be another step to go through to get to the point where we vote, or we vote tonight. I just don't know.
I don't. Anybody?
if I may.
Yeah.
Lad Rain, Plymouth Energy Commission. The price of putting off a vote could be that the rebates are less available to us. So although it's important to be informed to make a decision like this, waiting could potentially postpone the array to not being complete this year, but to doing another one of these votes next June, waiting for the rebates.
Well, I'm looking at the agenda here, and it says public hearing on the 26th, July 10th, or thereabout, select board approval. So, I mean, we have a meeting on July 10th, and, you know, I know myself, and I think Brian and Mike, you know, want to look at it, I think, before we make a decision, but, you know.
And I don't think it's that we're against it 100%. I think that I could definitely, I'm kind of neutral, I guess, I would say. I've tried to catch up on some reading recently. I don't think I have enough information, like the ones on the Energy Commission here tonight have been studying it a very long time, and I probably would come to the same conclusion. It's new.
Again, myself, yes.
Are there specific things that we can give to the board to facilitate that, a greater level of comfort or more information? Because we're happy to collect more data.
Yeah, well.
Could they have some sort of timber crews done on the property for that 3 acres, that what they're gonna cut, and
3 acres?
or 2, whatever the clear cut is? So it's not a surprise that there's a lot of marketable lumber or there's none, and we're stuck paying $7,800, or are we stuck paying $2,000?
So is it okay if I speak? Okay, sorry. Neil, do you recall Randy said that he had looked at that lot? Did he actually do a cruise?
He's walked a lot. We'd have to probably get some solid numbers.
That might cost us money, the town?
No.
No. Okay.
When is the Energy Commission meeting again?
They met last Wednesday.
Tuesday in July.
When?
Third Tuesday in July, but we could meet before that.
When is their deadline?
What is the deadline that you have for, I mean, I'm looking at this and it says select board approval July 10th. So what I'm saying is if we could meet before, I would like to meet with the commission if you have a meeting, and I would like to take a look at this and, you know, see what questions I have. Again, being an accountant, everything is return on investment, and if that would be possible.
The point we're trying to make is that the town makes a minimal investment of $7,800 if we choose not to sell the lumber, and then we start making money on the electricity that we're creating.
Well, I don't think.
I understand the concept of return on investment. I'm challenging it because there's really no investment.
Yeah.
Wait, why don't we call a special meeting of the PEC members and invite the select board? Is that appropriate? I don't know.
For the Energy Commission?
Yes.
Because I would like to attend that. I don't know if
2 members go.
Huh?
2 members.
Right. Okay.
Can we put it on the agenda for the next meeting, and they'll have their meeting by then? We'll meet back here and we'll have some more information.
Okay.
So we'll work on getting a date to meet in the next week.
Okay. Let
Our next
the
meeting
town
is-
know, and then they can.
And our next meeting is?
July 10th, I think.
Our only challenge, and I'm not whining, but the 4th of July really throws a wrench into
Right.
everyone's lives, in a good way.
Yeah, so I'm not sure that we'll actually meet before.
I think we can
We'll figure it out.
We're trying to get creative.
Okay. Well, you can let the town know. Do you have anything else, Bill, that you?
Nope. Just
Okay.
make sure everything gets addressed.
All right.
So do we need to continue this till July 10th?
Right. As far as the vote.
Do we need to have a
I feel-
vote right now To continue? No. Okay.
And I was just going by their timeline there, July 10th, so. Okay, I think we're through with that. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time and your input, and thank you, everybody, for coming with your questions and comments. And we thank you very much. And we will be in touch. Bill can keep us up on what we do as far as a meeting or something like that.
So I guess if you call or pick a date that you can call a special meeting, and then if we only have 2 selectmen show up that are interested,
Right.
then we don't have to post it, or we don't have to have a select board meeting either.
Brian, would you like to?
There's only a couple questions that I need answered. I would like to hear an answer to.
Okay, you'd like to be in it?
Sure.
Mike?
Depends on what it is, John. 'Cause I do work.
I could go.
You want to?
But if Brian and I go, then Bill could not go.
That's fine.
All right. Okay, the 2 of you go then. Okay. Now we will move on to Sean.
Great, thanks.
All right. Sorry for the delay.
No problem. Great conversation. I had hoped to have projection capability, but I'm guessing that might not be possible. Okay. Then you're just gonna have to rely on my storytelling skills to.
We had that, and we've
Where'd he
used
go?
it before.
Yeah, if we could, we could have set it up, I guess,
Yeah,
but.
okay.
I'll do my best to walk through the presentation. Most of it is easily explained anyway. Bear with me a moment as I get set up here. Okay. Everyone hear me? My name's Sean Downey. I'm from Manchester, New Hampshire. I'm a consultant for Grid America, which is a division of National Grid, energy distribution and transmission company that operates in a lot of parts of the Northeast of the United States, based in Waltham, Massachusetts. And I'm here to talk about the Granite State Power Link, which is a brand new transmission line project designed to carry renewable energy in the form of wind, backed up by hydropower from Canada, specifically Quebec, into the New England grid. I should note that this is my second night in Plymouth in 6 days, which is always a treat. I very much appreciate the invitation from the Select Board to come and talk a little bit about our project. This is the first time we've been invited by a Select Board on a town that is not on our project route, so we're excited to come and share the news about what's going on in the region. So as I said, this is a 168-mile long transmission line adjacent to or entirely within existing transmission corridors, carrying up to 1,200 megawatts of renewable energy. As I said, and as has been recently developed and can say now will be Canadian, specifically Quebec wind power, backed up by hydro. In Vermont, the project is roughly 53 miles long. It comes across the international border at Norton, Vermont, and runs adjacent to the existing right-of-way through the Northeast Kingdom, and in the form of an HVDC transmission line. It crosses the Connecticut River into New Hampshire, in Littleton, still on HVDC lines, and cuts kind of due west, again, adjacent to the existing HVDC corridor from Littleton to Monroe. In Monroe, we propose to build a new converter station where the power will be converted to AC, and then we link up with the existing AC corridor that runs from Monroe down to Londonderry. That's about a 106-mile run from Monroe to the southernmost portion of the right-of-way in Litchfield, where there will be no right-of-way expansion. And as I will explain in greater detail later, with limited visual aids, there will be virtually no visual or environmental impact. So our neighboring towns here in the Plymouth area, Alexandria, Groton, Hebron, Rumney, Wentworth, Warren, and Hill, are all towns on our project route of varying lengths given the way that the right-of-way runs through these towns. None of those towns will have expanded right-of-way, and in a vast majority of cases, the towers, the structures that are currently there will simply be reused and, as they say in the electrical engineering business, reconductored, which is in lay speak, essentially hanging new wires to carry the additional electric load. I want to be very clear, there is right-of-way expansion required in Littleton and Monroe, and in the southernmost portion, roughly a quarter mile in Litchfield, and a couple miles in Londonderry. The project will terminate at a switching station in Londonderry, where it will essentially join up with the existing transmission corridor down to Massachusetts. So that's the project in a nutshell. We're particularly proud of the project because it is built within or adjacent to existing transmission corridors, maximizes the use of existing infrastructure, which keeps development costs down, and minimizes environmental and visual impacts. So as I said, there's little or no viewshed impact for 106 of the 115-mile run in New Hampshire. And I'll get into a little bit more detail there, particularly as it relates to the towns in this area. But if I can, my map is kind of hard to see here. We leave Monroe, we cross briefly into Lyman, head south into Bath, Haverhill, Warren, Wentworth, Rumney, Groton, Hebron, Alexandria, Hill, Andover, Salisbury, Webster, Hopkinton, a little bit of Concord, Dunbarton and Goffstown, Bedford, and Merrimack, into Litchfield and Londonderry. So we have 24 towns in New Hampshire. We're particularly proud of this project, and we feel as though it's a compelling story to tell when it comes to projects of this size and scope, because of this 106-mile AC component that I've talked about a couple times. For those of you that are familiar with that right-of-way, it's been in operation for decades. There are two structures on the outside edge of that 350-foot right-of-way. They are 60-foot tall structures. They are known in electrical grid speak as the A201 and B202 lines. And currently, they have the capacity of 230 kV lines. We propose to upgrade them to 345 kV lines. Doing so simply by stringing new wires. As I said, there will be no expansion of that right of way. It's 350 feet today. It'll be 350 feet the day we're done. So we're going to reuse a majority of the structures, vast majority of the structures that are there, hang the new wires. And I'll turn this around with the board's permission to kind of give you an idea of what we're looking at here. This is a cross-section of the existing right-of-way. I know it's probably difficult to see. The two 60-foot towers on the outside with a 110-foot HVDC tower in the middle. These two towers on the outside are the only ones we propose to do anything to. For 80% of the towers that are out there now, this is what it looks like today. That's what it's going to look like when we're finished. The only real viewshed impact on this is the addition of slightly longer insulators, given the additional load on the lines from 230 to 345 kV. And I'm told by the electrical engineers that the wires themselves will be a little bit thicker than they are now. Now, I say a vast majority of the structures because we have come to the conclusion and identified the fact that roughly 1 in 5 of the structures that are out there now, about 20%, will need to be replaced. Now, some of them will be replaced because of condition. Some of them are relatively old, and some will need to be replaced due to additional needs for clearance, given the new loads on the lines. So we're still in preliminary engineering, so I can't say exactly which tower and which part of the line is going to be replaced at this point, but we do feel pretty confident that it's going to be 1 and 5. Now, some percentage of that 1 and 5 will be replaced exactly as is, as I said, for condition. So there's a 60-foot tower out there today. The condition need will be identified. It will be replaced with a 60-foot tower, and the new line strung, and we go on down the line. In some portions, in some percentage of that 20%, some percentage of that 1 and 5, we will need to increase clearance from the ground given the new load on the line, 230 to 345. So at the tallest, those structures will be 80 feet, which is only a 20-foot increase from 60. And in a lot of cases, our engineering team will identify the fact that if there's a 60-foot tower out there today, if we need 71 feet of clearance, we'll build a 71-foot tower. We're not going to go put an 80-foot tower in place if we only need 71 feet. It doesn't make sense from a visual impact, doesn't make sense from an environmental impact, and doesn't make sense from a cost impact. Keeps our development costs down if we're only building towers as tall as they need to be. So tallest case scenario, you can see a 20-foot increase on X percentage of 20% of the structures that are out there now. But again, 80% of the towers will remain in place, and we're just hanging new wires. So in the cases where we will need taller structures, again, it's probably difficult to see. That's what's out there now. That's what will be out there when we're complete. And I'd be happy to walk the audience through this when I'm finished as well. Actually, I'll do it real quick. So that's what's out there now. Talking about the 2 towers on the outside, 60 foot each. That's what it'll look like when we're complete. So virtually no change. And then for the structures, for the some percentage of the 20% that need to be taller, they'll look like that. The story and kind of economic benefit of the Granite State Power Link is equally compelling, we feel. We're anticipating creating about 1,500 annual jobs in New Hampshire, 2,000 including Vermont, over a roughly 30-month construction phase. Our co-developer on this project, minority investor, is a group called Citizens Energy. Energy's been a hot topic tonight, so I'm sure some of you are probably familiar with Citizens Energy. It's the nonprofit in Massachusetts started by Joe Kennedy. Citizens Energy has begun expanding the work they do, so they will invest in a project like this and utilize their proceeds off of the ultimate construction and operation and reinvest a portion of those proceeds into low-income energy assistance for folks in New Hampshire and Vermont, as continuation of the work they do. That comes in a wide variety of forms. The way the program looks in New Hampshire is still kind of being finalized, and we look forward to announcing that very soon. But the work they do includes home heating assistance, energy efficiency, weatherization, those kinds of things. Again, for low-income families that qualify for it. We're in talks with regional economic development partners about supporting things like revolving loan funds, job creation, and other economic stimulus packages. And to tonight's conversation, we've determined that the project will reduce New Hampshire market electric prices by $1.4 billion over the first 10 years of operation, which we believe, obviously, energy prices are a hot topic in New Hampshire, will spur statewide economic growth. And last but not least, substantial new property tax revenues to host towns. We're looking at that in the hundreds of millions of dollars for additional property tax revenues for host towns. Unfortunately, Plymouth is not one of our towns. I'll take a half step back and explain a little bit about the energy prices, because that's usually one of the first questions I get asked. The $1.4 billion consists of two numbers. And again, it's over the first 10 years of operation. It's $157 million in energy market savings, which is what you actually pay for the electricity that you use. And then there's $1.215 billion in capacity costs, which is a portion of an electric bill that customers pay for generation capacity. And anything beyond that is where the energy pricing and the way that those prices get set and passed off to customers gets very complicated. But these numbers that we've developed were developed for Grid America by a firm that does this, consulting firm that does this, utilizing some pretty sophisticated forecasting measures. So, these are numbers that we feel very confident in and stand behind. And it really kind of breaks down to about 60 cent per megawatt savings for electric customers. And getting beyond that in detail, one of the questions we get a lot is, what does that mean for the average electric customer's monthly bill? That's a really difficult question to answer. So we can say that this translates to about 60 cents per megawatt hour. So one of the questions we get is about need and the timing of our project. We announced it on March 28th of this past year, and we've been going nonstop ever since to get in front of as many stakeholders as possible and tell our story and get the project moving along in terms of next steps. But it's been pretty well documented that due to the closure of fossil fuel and nuclear generation facilities across the region, there's a need for clean, renewable, and affordable energy in New England. The project, we believe, and others do as well, is vital to helping New England states meet their greenhouse gas emissions reductions goals. We're proud to say this will create will eliminate 3 million tons of carbon dioxide per year over the first 10. That's a rough number. It starts out at about $3 million and actually decreases a little bit every year over the first 10 because of the environmental benefits that this renewable energy project and others would mean for the region. As I said, we're going to deliver wind power from Quebec backed up by hydro in order to meet these goals. And the use of existing corridors infrastructure means the environmental benefits are met at a lower cost with minimum environmental impact. As I know has been talked about for a long time, our prime commercial target on this project is the Massachusetts Renewable Energy RFP, which is probably something you've heard talked about quite a bit. That response is due on July 27th. It will be a competitive process with other projects of this size and scope, all vying to be selected in that process as the project that wins that commercial target. As I said, those bids are due on July 27th, and selection is expected in January of 2018. We are very open to talking to New Hampshire distribution companies about purchasing power offtake from the line. As I said, we're pretty new. We're just about 3 months old at this point. So those conversations have not taken place yet, but we've got a long road ahead of us. So we like to reiterate that folks that wishing to explore voluntary offtake of clean energy from the project, we're open to having those conversations. Outreach and engagement is something that we're working very hard at for National Grid, Grid America. It's not just a talking point, it's something they take very seriously. We're excited to be launching a rather robust outreach public education effort with the goal of talking to community leaders, state officials, landowners, abutters, and the general public. As I said, we were announced in March, and outreach has been going pretty much nonstop ever since. Meetings are underway with all select boards and councils for towns on the project route, elected officials at every level, community, business, environmental organizations, and other key stakeholders representing the 24 towns and the regions we pass through. And then, of course, particularly in the areas where there is additional right-of-way needed, private, state, and federal landowners and easement holders along the way. So we are up at www.granitestatepowerlink.com. We have a toll-free hotline with folks can call to answer to have questions answered. That's 855-603-GSPL. Those last 4 digits are 4475. Our email address is info@granitestatepowerlink.com, and we're on Twitter at GSPowerlink. And then, from there, I'd be happy to take questions. I will say, in closing, we've been very fortunate to receive a positive response from towns on our project route, stakeholders both in Vermont and New Hampshire. We are certainly asking folks to voice their support for us in the form of letters, resolutions, whatever towns or bodies or organizations choose to express that support. And we're going to be working hard, not just up until the RFP response date, but through our anticipated commercial operation at the end of 2022. Our permitting schedule, for those that are curious, we will file with the federal government for the presidential permit that is required to cross the international boundary in the fall of this year, and we'll begin our SEC process in the first quarter of 2018. And then there's a similar Vermont process as well. They don't call it the Site Evaluation Committee. It's called something different, but we'll be pursuing that at the same time. So it's a rather large project, and we're excited to be underway and talking to you folks.
Thank you very much. Anyone on the board have any questions, or Mike?
One observation that I heard the other night that's kind of key is that you're going to be looking to win the bid for the RFP for the state of Massachusetts.
Yes.
And there will be competition for that, you versus, among others, I don't know how many others there might be, but Northern Pass will be looking for that RFP. And if you get it and Northern Pass does not get it, that's one more hurdle that Northern Pass, and it may be a very big hurdle for Northern Pass to continue on. That's my assessment. And maybe you can comment on that.
It's what I can do tonight is talk about our project. And I can't, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't say what other projects will do if they are or not selected in the RFP process. But what we're busy and trying to do virtually every night at this point at meetings just like this is tell the Granite State PowerLink story and hopefully earn folks' support because we feel as though particularly with the outpouring of support we've seen from folks not just across the route but across the state, because energy needs are a statewide issue. We feel as though we can put ourselves in the best position by demonstrating that support. So it's a long way of not totally answering your question, but
thank you.
Yeah.
So if Northern Pass has demand, they just open up a dam and produce more electricity. And you said initially that your focus is wind power.
Yes.
And so how does that, do you have banks of batteries or to store and release, or is it going to be wind power and then water on the back end or something?
Yeah, we will have contracted wind supply, and as I said, backed up by hydropower when necessary. We're pretty confident about the contracted supply we're pursuing, and we're excited to be able to say that this is a wind project.
Is your hydropower already established? Or-
The company is in, it's, I don't know the answer to the question. We are in pursuit of agreements with suppliers up in Quebec. I do know that this will be contracted wind supply backed up by hydro, but I can't comment as to the status of the negotiations with suppliers simply because they're ongoing, and frankly, I don't know the status of them.
So it's not Hydro-Quebec then, or?
Anybody else?
I have a question. Has National Grid done projects similar to this?
Sure, yeah. National Grid did a project called the Vermont Green Line, which you might be familiar with. There's been a lot written about it. You should feel free to Google it. I'm sure if the board was interested, I'd be able to find some and point you in the direction of some information on the project. But they had a lot of success working with towns on that route, on that project. And then, as I said, they're a transmission operator throughout the region. So they've got a considerable amount of expertise in not just the building and execution of these projects, but planning and successful delivery.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
For me.
Mike?
I would encourage the select board, if we have the ability to do some kind of vote of support, if that's what the will of the board is, if we can do that. I'd also encourage the residents of Plymouth, because Plymouth is a pretty pivotal town with what's going on now with the SEC. And if there all of a sudden is a ton of support from Plymouth towards this project, somehow the SEC could find out that Plymouth is putting a lot of support behind this, and that could sway some of the SEC members in what their vote might ultimately be.
As I said, we're excited and proud to be able to tell the story of the project, at a low development cost, absolute minimal environmental impact, virtually no viewshed impact for a majority of the line length in New Hampshire. And as I said, the show of support from folks on the route and off. That's part of the story, and we're fortunate to be able to go out and talk about it every night.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right.
Appreciate your
Thank
time.
you.
Thanks for being patient.
Of course, happy to do it.
I am sorry about the overhead, too. That was,
Oh, not at all. Not at all.
should have, might have been more convenient.
Not at all.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. The board want to entertain anything?
Can't.
Okay,
You can't.
all right,
Check with your attorneys. You've already paid them $52,000.
right, okay,
Get your money's worth out of it.
okay. All right,
You're part of a bigger group. It's like,
Yep.
you better be careful.
yep, all right. Do we have anything else we need, do we need to go into non-public? Okay. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion, we go into non-public.
Second. I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye.